Hi there, Al here from Family Base with another quick guitar tutorial. Today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about, I suppose, playing your first chord progression, or when you're learning to play a chord progression. What do we mean by a chord progression? We mean like a pattern of chords that are played over time. We get into what that means and get into a little bit more detail. If you're learning to play chords, no doubt you've tried the basic chord shapes. Your G, D, E minor, C. So, you know, there's only thousands of songs that can be played with that progression, with those chords. So maybe I want to talk to you a little bit today about how to make playing them a little bit easier and the things you can work on to playing a simple chord progression. I mean, maybe they don't seem so basic. Maybe they're still a struggle. If you're starting to play guitar and play chords for the first time, usually your goal is to play a song. Like, you're going to try and learn a song and maybe sing along as you're playing. So getting your head around the fingering, the chords and the shapes and the stretch and all that type of thing can really feel like it's slowing you down. So it's about trying to work out a couple of things that can help you work through that. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk about what a chord progression is. In this case, we have four chords. We have G major, we have D major, we've got E minor, we've got C major. And they're all in the key of G, and they relate to each other in around the key of G. I'm not going to get too much into the key and the theory of that. That's for a different video. But those chords work well together, and they certainly work well in that order. And yeah, you could think of all the different songs that you could, you know, that you could hear in your head when you hear that progression. It's very familiar. So when we say a progression, we mean we have a 4-chord progression. Those 4 chords played over 4 bars in this case. 1 bar per chord, and each bar has 4 beats in that bar. So what does that mean? So think of it this way. I have a click here, a little metronome on my phone. I'm just going to play a simple click 4 times. That's 4 beats in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And the bar, next bar. So starting that from the start, we'll have 4 bars. And each bar will have 4 beats in it. And every time a new bar happens, we change the chord. New bar. 2, 3, change. 2, 3, change. 2, 3, change. 2, 3, change. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on. So that's a progression. The pattern of chords played over time. In this case, it's 4 chords played over 4 bars, and it's 4 times, so there's 4 beats in the bar. Our tempo is set at a reasonable speed. It's 90 BPM, so it's not that fast. Again, when you're doing these practices, I always say, tune your guitar and have a metronome ready. I mean, practice with the metronome as soon as you get comfortable with what the chords are doing. Don't try to do too much at once. But when you're comfortable with the shape of the chords, get the metronome out and play it in time. So before we can play the progression, let's break it down. The chord shapes. Let's look at the chord shapes. Okay, so your basic standard G chord. Okay, so when you look at your guitar, you'll see you've got in your standard 6-string guitar, your strings are numbered. From the thinnest high E is actually string number 1. So you have string 1, string 2, string 3, string 4, 5, and 6. So string 1 is down here, and 6 is up here. So that is the convention. That's how strings are named. I always name them the other way. I normally, when I'm working myself, I think of the low E as the 1, but that's just confusing. That's just how I do it. Whatever way works it out for you. So I'm going to go by string name. So E, A, D, G, B, E. If I'm talking about what strings and then what frets to press on. Your straightforward chord shape. So what did we say? We're doing first G. So on the E, on the low E, you're fret 3. On the A, fret 2. And then on the high E, fret 3. The rest of the strings are open. So that's what you sound like. That's what you sound like. Now, if that stretch is difficult, how can we make it easier? How can we cheat it a little bit? If you want to just play your song and it's starting with the chord G, and you're just getting used to the idea of, you know, playing the chords and trying to play them in time, but the stretch is maybe too big. Maybe you don't have a 3/4 size guitar, a half size guitar, trying to use a full size guitar. Well, leave out the strings that you don't need to play. So you can play a G chord with the full finger in like this. But you can take away these bottom strings, don't play them, and just play the bottom strings. And I'm just strumming from the D string down, and that's the chord of G. And then eventually you can add them back in. So you don't have to go for the full chord shape from the start. You know, you can go for just what you can get away with. So that's G, full G, two different shapes. Okay, D is next, okay? For D, we're looking at, on the G string, fret 2, on the B string, fret 3, so that should be that finger, sorry, and on the high E, fret 2. You do not play all the strings for G, because, or for D, sorry. For D you wouldn't play all the strings, because listen, you sound a bit cluttered with these big low strings in. So you play from the A string down, play from the D string down, but maybe leave out the low E, because low E isn't really in a D major chord. So best to leave it out at the moment, keep it cleaner. So you just strum on the bottom. Now, you can also leave out the high E note and just play these two. It's a type of D chord, it's called a suspended chord, but it'll work if you want to make it a little simpler. Next shape, E minor. So, for E minor, A string, fret 2, D string, fret 2. Those two notes together, and then every string strum down. E minor. That's not too tough of a chord. It's a nice simple chord to work on. Usually you would use these fingers. A lot of people would use. Some people use those fingers because it leaves them free to maybe add in the extra notes if they want to play Wonderwall or something like that. But that's the basic E minor chord. Okay? And now C major. A lot of people struggle with C major, and when you're starting out it can be quite a stretch, it can be quite difficult to get your fingers in the right place. So let's have a look at it. So you've got the A string, fret 3, the D string, fret 2, and then down on the B string, fret 1. So your C major shape. So they're the chord shapes: G, D, E minor, C, or if you're simplifying them, G, D, E minor is pretty simple already, and C. Again, all these chords, you'll find chord charts all over the internet. You find them on Google. Just search for chord charts. You'll see a breakdown of how to finger the chords properly. So now the timing of the changes. So we had our click set up before. So let's talk about how we move from one shape to the next. Again, it's important to take your time with this. It can be very frustrating and you feel like you want to rush from one chord to the next. Take your time. If it takes time for you to change, if you're taking time to go from G and then down to D and then up to E minor, take your time and just practice it every day. Practice it every day for a few minutes. You will get faster, it will get easier. You just need to practice, practice, practice. It gets easy. And then the more you learn these changes, it makes changing to all the different chords that you'll eventually learn a lot easier. You're just teaching your body, you're teaching your brain, your hands, everything has to learn to get used to this kind of a thing. So let's talk about the timing if you get up to a place where you want to strum these patterns. So I'm going to just set up my click again here. Now, again, I'm trying to do my best to rehearse the click as often as I can. Let's play our click. So changing at the top of every bar. And 1, 2, 3, 4. When you get a little more comfortable with the changes, then you can start looking at some kind of a strum. Simple strum. Down, up, 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 down, up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And with the click, okay? So let's try. That speed is too fast, slow it down, go right down. Let's look. So that's what we have here. We have, wow, right down to 70 BPM, okay? 1, 2, 3. Down, up, down, up, down. That's, yep. Whatever speed it is, there's no such thing as being too slow. Once it's comfortable for you to work on and get those changes from chord to chord. Okay, so that kind of thing, over and over, and don't get bored of just doing it 3 or 4 times. Like, try get yourself into the habit of doing it a few minutes every day, playing that chord progression in the loop, playing it in the loop, and eventually then you can add different chords in. You might even learn the progression of a song that you want to sing along with the chord progression, and that's when things get a little bit more fun, a little bit more creative. But just you have to get your hands familiar with the neck, familiar with the guitar, before you can go charging into a song, because you could frustrate yourself if you're kind of falling over chords and changes. It's nice to get a little bit of work done on the changes and get them a little bit smooth before you go starting to sing a song. So guys, that's it for the introduction to playing a chord progression. Hope that was useful. Leave a comment if there's anything else that you think that we should work on, and keep an eye on the Facebook page for some more music tutorials. Thanks very much. Be safe.